Behold, my glorious supporter Liliana has hornswoggled us once again. That's right, the Parley creator who brought you the best Warframe series. Well, who asked me the question that prompted me to make the best Warframe series on this channel, has come back for round 2. An epilogue. A surprise best Warframe series epilogue. Liliana says, "Afternoon, Captain. I may be a day late requesting this parlay after the epilogue, the finale uploaded. But worry not, there's a reason for it. I see the longest parlay request to date has come to an end at last. Or has it? Without further ado, I present to you as my final request of the year, this parlay. So you have no favorite Warframe, truly? Not a single Warframe in the game is your favorite? Well then, what about a Warframe that isn't in the game? Oh! Didn't see that one coming. That's right, I'm not done. Now it's time for you to create your favorite Warframe using pieces of the others. Choose a passive ability, base stats, and abilities 1 through 4 from any number of other Warframes and combine them together to form something truly magical that will surely be your favorite. Your only restriction is you have to pick abilities from the same slot. So, for example, Blazing Chakram can't be put in the first, third, or fourth slot of a Warframe because it's Nezha's second ability. Abilities from the Helminth can be tacked onto this new frame as well. You must also give this new frame a name once it's been conceptualized. Whew, I've been had, folks. All right, so I decided to add an additional rule. I drove home in the finale that I really don't have a single favorite, and so one thing that we need to commit to if we're going to decide to pursue this mighty task is to use only the Warframes I put in S tier. I think the only way to get this close to something that would you're basically making me invent a favorite, and I think the only way to get close to that is to limit it to I do at least like these Warframes better, I guess, vaguely, kind of, than the others. So I'm going to commit to saying it has to be only these 6 Warframes and the Helminth system abilities. Now, I really like the Helminth system abilities, so that fits in just fine. So we can only use Necros, Hydroid, Equinox, Gauss, Wisp, and Hildren, and then so passive in those 4 abilities, and then we can use one Helminth ability. I'm not gonna let myself use multiple. Some very quick honorable mention or thoughts before I begin. It would be cool. I don't think it would be good, but it would be cool to make a full Helminth ability frame. I think you probably want Infested Mobility, like Expedite Suffering or Marked for Death. What other ones? Perspicacity would be terrible troll. That's not a good thing to do to someone. Probably the Empower one would fit the Infested frame theme pretty well. And yeah, then I don't know. But anyway, the idea of having there be a Warframe that is all the Infested frame abilities, and so that it kind of is like a Warframe that's in the game, but that totally defeats the point, because then it's like, that's just my single favorite one. We're making an amalgam, which is a wonderful workaround to my insistence that I don't have a single one that I feel special about, right? So again, my rule, initial condition, additional condition, is that we need to use only the 6 Warframes I put in S tier and then the Helminth. So let's just begin. Passives. So Necros' passive is when enemies die nearby, they gain Necros some health. I think that's probably the best of these passives. Equinox has the tiny equilibrium. Wisp has her invisibility in the air thing. That's kind of cool. Hildren, it's probably the longer shield gating. I think I'm going to pick Necros' passive and Necros' third ability. So we're going to have Desecrate with Despoil, and then that goes well with the passive because you restore health when you use Despoil to pay health to make more loot from an enemy. That's cool. That sounds fun to me. I really, really like Necros' sort of like energy economy. The thing where you use Despoil so that you can desecrate enemies and make more loot, and a health orb for health. And then if you pick up the health orb, you gain back some health. As enemies die, you gain back health. And then you use Equilibrium, which gives you energy. I love that synergy. I really, really, really like it. I think it's interesting. It's a good example of the buildcraft in this game. And so I want that. So I'm going to do Necros' passive and Necros' third ability. So now we have the rest, right? And another idea I had, another thing that I was going to try to focus on, is to make a Warframe that like has different paths they can go in by using infused or subsumed abilities. So in other words, a Warframe where like you can remove one ability and replace it with another, and then it really changes the feeling of the Warframe. Or another way you could cheat and make something I would really like would be to put a combination of abilities together that you can almost but not quite get with the helmet system. I can't immediately think of too many, but like to give you a simple example, you could add a very powerful AoE damage ability like Discharge, and force multiplier ability like Breach Surge, and then a good armor reduction ability all together. And usually you can't get all three of those things with a really high quality ability at the same time. And you could then combine them together. Now, I think that would be kind of boring personally, that specific example, but that's what I mean, like a combination of elements that normally it's not possible to get them all together, but you could make it possible by doing a Warframe that way. So maybe making a combo like that would be really fun. I think the next thing I'm going to do is pick... So, okay, Wisp's first ability is very tempting because it's so powerful, the Reservoirs, but I have to be true to myself and not just make something powerful. I don't love that ability. I feel like it's kind of reductive. It basically just gives Wisp massive passive health and health regeneration, which is very good and I think is like, I guess, fun to use, but I don't really like having to deploy them. I feel like the ability is sort of false complication. Like the other motes are good, but the ability is really just like a passive gigantic amount of health for Wisp. So I was going to choose that just because it's very good, but we can go Gauss. Another honorable mention for Equinox. I think it would be cheating to say, oh, well, I'll take Equinox's Metamorphosis, and then I have 2 forms, and I can have 7 abilities. Like, yes, haha, but that's cheating. That's Equinox, you know what I mean? So I'm going to take Gauss's first ability. So we have Mach Rush and Desecrate, and then Necros' passive. So from there, it gets a lot easier because now we've narrowed it down a lot. What can we do with the rest? I really like Pillage. I think Pillage is fun. I normally don't like this in Warframe, but I like how Children's Pillage it's a lot worse, almost always doesn't do much of anything against Infested, but you really don't need it as much against Infested because they're just not, and so having that additional defense when you're against Corpus and Grineer kind of feels nice to me somehow. It's also just obviously a really good ability, but it's an infusible ability. So if I'm going to pick Pillage, it's going to have to be alongside an ability that you normally can't get with Pillage. So like if the fourth ability is another infusible ability, then we'd be good to go, but there aren't any. So we're out of luck there. There is no way to pick Pillage and have it not be sort of a waste of the second slot in my book. Not everybody will feel that way. I do really like Wisp's clone, and you could say the stealth or the invulnerabilities. The stealth is from Wisp passive. The clone is in midair, and if a lot of people don't know this, while your clone is airborne, Wisp's passive works. You're stealthed while airborne. If your clone is airborne, that counts, and you on the ground will also be stealthed. At the end, you also get some invulnerability. I like this as a panic button. I think it's a cool mobility tool. Is it my favorite though? Like, I don't know if it is. I might have to do Hildren Pillage. I think I might have to do Hildren Pillage. You just have it innately, and then you combine it with something else. I might just have no choice. Yeah, that's the ability of these that I like the most of the second abilities. And then the fourth ability. What else are we really gonna pick than Hydroid's Tentacle Swarm? Like, who are we joking here? The thing I really want to do, what I really want to do, is make triple loot abilities. That's what really excites me, is that kind of, I said before, like combining different abilities that you normally can't have all 3 of them together. Yeah. So Tentacle Swarm with Pilfering Swarm, and then Desecrate Despoil with Necros' passive, and then you can infuse Atlas's Orgaze if you really wanted to just like bleh. Now, it has been questioned in the past whether you can have all those abilities interact. Now, the patch notes say they can. There was a patch note where they said those are separate layers of loot multiplication, but there are other concerns like what exactly does Tentacle Swarm have to do to make extra loot? Does it need to be holding an enemy or just touch an enemy, or does it just need to be in the radius of Tentacle Swarm? I think it should work that way in the first place. If it doesn't work that way, it's not just in the radius. I think it should, but it probably doesn't. Orgaze, the enemies have to be petrified, of course. And then Desecrate. The main concern here is there's this idea of making multiple body parts from Desecrate to get more loot. Some people have claimed that you don't make multiple body parts when they're stoned because it's like rock, but I feel like I totally see multiple body parts. Anyway, the point is I just haven't tested that. So when I say that those are the abilities I want, that's what I'm thinking. I just want to explain that. So our final frame is Necros' passive. You gain a little bit of health. It's like 5 or 10 health, I forget, when an enemy dies near you. Cool. I like that passive. It really has a noticeable effect in the game where you just sort of accumulate health over time. It's very cozy. First ability is Gauss's Mock Rush, because of course it is. You also have the augment for that suck. You slam into a wall and suck the enemies in. Very, very good with Orgaze and Pilfering Swarm. Gotcha. The second ability is Hildren's Pillage. This is just a really good like stability ability. It gives you the ability to reduce armor, and it basically completely takes care of your survivability all in one, which is awesome. Very elegant, very multitasky abilities here was the goal. And then because I have those two multitasky abilities, we can afford to use the rest of the build on loot memes. So the third and fourth ability are Desecrate with Despoil and Tentacle Swarm, Pilfering Swarm. So the great thing about this too is that Despoil, right, you can use with Equilibrium to get a ridiculous amount of energy. Well, you could use Desecrate too, but the point is with Despoil, you're not paying energy. You get back the health from the health orbs, but then you get energy from the health orbs with Equilibrium, which will fuel all the other abilities. So what you can do, I went the extra mile, Liliana. I've got a build for you as well. So the build, of course, is the augment for Mock Rush, the augment for Desecrate, the augment for Tentacle Swarm, and then if you were to infuse Orgaze and do the triple loot thing, and then you group them together with Mock Rush's augment, then you have the 4 augment build that I've been trying to make a decent 4 augment Warframe for like 5 years. The entire time I've been playing Warframe, my holy grail is justify putting 4 augments on a Warframe. Have it be like the best build for this Warframe is 4 different augments. I mean, maybe there is one. We'll see this go through a framework, but I've been trying for like a while, and I really don't think so. Like usually there's one of the 4 that's just the stretch, but this would be an example of like you really want specifically all 4 augments. Like that like is the number 1 priority. So the 4 augments, if you infuse Orgaze, Atlas Petrify it, then Orgaze over Pillage. So we're just imagining that. Pillage is just good for the basic functionality of the Warframe. I like that ability, but for the sake of having fun and thinking out loud about this, we're infusing Pillage, Petrify. I have Pilfering Swarm, Pillage, and Petrify, okay? And then Orgaze. So the 4 augments, Equilibrium. So now you have basically infinite energy because you have Despoil, Equilibrium, and Necros is passive. So you can run Blind Rage for Orgaze to get a bunch of strength, and you don't need to worry about running out of energy because you have the Despoil Equilibrium thing, right? You can spam Mock Rush like crazy to pull enemies together. The Exilus slot is obviously Cunning Drift, the best Exilus mod, except for all the situations where it's not the best. Then we have 2 mod slots left. So I think we don't have any survivability. What are this Warframe's stats? Uh-oh. Well, anyway, normally you could just do Adaptation because I have Pillage, and you could just get Overshields, and then they have some damage reduction. You can get the back, and then they have Adaptation damage reduction, and you're safe. And then you have the healing. I think for this, probably we just do like a health mod or maybe adaptation if the base health is high, and then we can use like Arcane Guardian or whatever, and you should be able to stay alive. Necros usually has very little trouble staying alive, so it should be fine. We'll use one mod slot for a survivability mod, fair, right? And then the final slot, okay, we have blind, so 4 augments, Equilibrium, Blind Rage, some survivability mod, and then, oh, Cunning Drift in the Excel slot. I guess you want range, really? Yeah, like stretch, I suppose. Do any of these things care about duration? Not really. Efficiency, we don't care. Strength, we have a lot. Yeah, so I guess that's it. So stretch. And then the aura, like growing power, probably. But it's not entirely necessary. Maybe not growing power. I don't know. I don't know about the aura. Anyway, that build, right? And then you have all the loot. You can make loot rain from the sky, and you have an ability to group its enemies together, and it would be good for Drift Frame because you have the dash, and it would be good if you don't infuse the other thing because Pillage can make you tanky by itself, and then you can build all sorts of random crap, and you could use like Tentacle Swarm has this quality where it takes like the square of your strength for some reason. So you can actually theoretically build it as a burst damage ability, even though that's really weird and not always good. Against Corpus, it can actually do a lot of damage even at high levels. So you can use Equilibrium to not worry about the efficiency with Despoil, and then use your Pillage to save space on survivability and still be tanky, and just commit all your mod space to strength and have like 350% strength, and then Tentacle Swarm does like the big damage. Spicy. Yeah, that's right. And you can infuse Infested Mobility to make this Warframe even faster. And there are just so many things. It's so good. Beautiful. We must name them, of course. In the grand tradition of Zaku, of course, this Warframe will not have a gender. It will be just parts of Necros, Hildren, and Gauss stapled to, and Hydroid stapled together. How can we we're doing this part live. I didn't prepare for this part. How can we make a name? So we have Necros, Death, Tentacles, Shields, and like a race car. How can we have to do this. There has to be some good name for like Cthulhu, Hot Wheels, like the car thing and the shields are kind of together, and then the death and the tentacles are like sort of together. We're just gonna think about it for a sec. We're just gonna tank on it for a sec. I might need to do a follow-up video. There might have to be a follow-up, dare I say, series of suggested audience-induced names. That's right. I've bamboozled you for the last time, except for all the times in the future I'll bamboozle you. Now begins a series of mini Parley where I'm going to allow patrons to propose names for this amalgam that I've created, and I will discuss them in little videos this month on the Pantaloon Saloon channel. Look forward to it. And then I will reveal my favorite name for this Warframe that I amalgamated. Look forward to it.